My fiancée and her mom laughed at my $400 ring in front of families. So I returned it and proposed. To her sister with a $40,000 one instead. I'm a 28-year-old guy, raised middle class, the kind of upbringing where birthdays meant homemade cake and hand-me-down gifts, not grand gestures. My parents taught me to value character over cash, effort over extravagance. I carried that belief into adulthood, into relationships, into work, into everything. So when I met Emily, who came from a more polished upper-class world, I honestly thought our different backgrounds wouldn't matter. She always said she admired my humility. Said money didn't impress her. Said love was about who you were, not what you had. We'd been together for 3 years. I'd watched her cry over bad bosses, helped her move apartments twice, supported her when her dog died, and covered rent when she was between jobs. And through all that, I never once felt used, because I thought we were building something real. The ring I bought wasn't flashy. It was $400, but it took months to save. I skipped lunches, picked up extra shifts, even sold some old electronics. It was simpler, a small diamond silver band, elegant but not gaudy. I picked it because it reminded me of her, refined but not loud, or at least who I thought she was. The night I proposed, I was shaking. We were at her parents' house for her mom's birthday at formal dinner, cloth napkins, expensive wine, the whole thing. I asked for a moment to speak, stood up, and told everyone how much Emily meant to me. Then I knelt down and opened the box. There was a pause. Then she smiled, said yes. Everyone clapped, but it was what came later after. The plates were cleared and the wine glasses refilled. That tore through me like glass, because that's when I found out what she really thought of my ring. She looked so overwhelmed when I proposed, like tears were forming behind her lashes. She gasped, covered her mouth, and nodded before wrapping her arms around me. Her whole family applauded. Her dad even patted my back. Her mom smiled, tight-lipped, but said nothing. I told myself that was nerves or surprise. Emily kissed me right there at the table and whispered, "Yes, of course." For a moment, I felt like I was flying, but that moment didn't last. Later that evening, after the dishes were cleared and most of the family had moved into the living room for coffee and dessert, I went to grab my coat from the hallway closet. That's when I heard the Emily and her mom in the kitchen, just on the other side of the wall. Her mom was laughing. I mean, did he pull that thing out of a Cracker Jack box? It's tiny. Emily's voice joined hers, light and sharp. Right, but bless his broke little heart, he tried so hard. I didn't have the heart to say anything. I froze. The ring box was still in my coat pocket because the ring had been a little too big. She said we'd get it resized. I touched the velvet case and felt my fingers clench around it. My ears were burning. My chest went hollow. I wasn't expecting fanfare, but I also wasn't expecting mockery. They didn't know I was standing right there, inches away. They didn't know I'd heard every word. I stood still, waiting for the blood to return to my legs. The laughter from the kitchen rang louder than the applause from earlier. And in that moment, something in me shifted. I no longer felt like I felt like a joke. I waited until everyone had gone home before I said anything. Emily was sitting at the edge of her bed, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. My chest was tight, my palms cold. "I heard you," I finally said. My voice cracked a little. "In the kitchen. You and your mom." She didn't even look up at first, just sighed like I was inconveniencing her. "Babe, you're being too sensitive. It was just a joke. A joke," I repeated, trying not to raise my voice. About the ring I worked months to pay for. About me being broke. She rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, don't make this dramatic. My mom jokes about everything." Before I could respond, her mother, who must have overheard us, walked right into the room like she owned it. She crossed her arms, chin high. "If you're so offended, maybe you should have bought a ring worth showing off," she said. "A woman like Emily deserves better. You should be grateful she even said yes to you." It felt like she slapped me. Emily didn't defend me, didn't correct her, didn't even seem embarrassed. She just sat there silently, letting her mother speak for her. And the worst part, she didn't disagree. Not once I felt something in my stomach sink like all the air. All the warmth had been sucked out of me. Then I noticed someone standing at the doorway. Grace, Emily's younger sister. She wasn't like the rest of them, quieter, softer, always keeping to the background. She met my eyes for a brief second, and there was something there. Not judgment, not amusement. Something like pity, or maybe disappointment in her own family. She didn't say a word, but the way she looked at me made my skin prickle. Like she knew this wasn't right. And in that moment, for the first time since I proposed, I started wondering what I had actually said yes to. Something told me. This was only the beginning. I didn't sleep much that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, hearing her mother's voice over and over, be grateful she even said yes. Emily had fallen asleep beside me, completely unbothered, scrolling through Instagram until she dozed off. That alone told me everything I needed to know. The next morning, I left the house early without saying a word. I took the ring with Mitha, same one I'd carefully picked out. The one I'd imagined her wearing for the rest of our lives. I walked into the jeweler's store, placed the box on the counter, and quietly asked for a return. The woman behind the register hesitated. "Change of heart?" she asked. I just nodded. Something like that. It wasn't even about the money anymore. It was about reclaiming a piece of dignity I didn't realize I'd lost. That day, instead of going to work, I drove around for hours, parked in different spots around the city, scrolled through old texts on my phone. I found messages from months ago inventing about hating her job, her rent being overdue, asking if I could help just this once. And then the next time, and the time after that, I went through my bank statements and did the math. I'd spent thousands on her in the last 2 years, helping her find herself, supporting her when she needed space, covering dinners, surprise trips, emergencies that somehow always fell on me. This wasn't about a ring. This was about how little she saw me, how little she thought of me. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I pulled a blanket from the hall closet and laid it on the couch. She barely noticed, but in my gut, I knew this wasn't a bump in the road. This was a signpost, and I had missed 100 of them. After I returned the ring, I thought I could quietly phase things out. But Emily had other plans. She was suddenly obsessed with wedding details. Guest lists, florists, venues. Her mother became the self-appointed wedding coordinator, barking out ideas like she was planning a royal gala, and every conversation I was dragged into came laced with backhanded jabs. "Of course, we'll need to cover the cost ourselves," her mom said once, looking directly at me. "I doubt his family can afford anything decent." Emily just sipped her wine and nodded. The jabs weren't subtle anymore. Her brother, Derek, made it worse. At dinner one night, when I mentioned a new project at work, he snorted and said, "So, what exactly do you do again?" "Turn computers off and on. That's not a real job, it's glorified tech support." Everyone laughed, everyone except Grace. Even when Emily's dad made a passive remark like, "Hopefully he can afford a better ring the second time around," I didn't speak. I just looked across the table and locked eyes with Grace. She was always the quiet one, not flashy, never jumped into the family's chaos. She'd stay behind to help clear dishes or refill water, the kind of person who noticed when someone's glass was empty, but never made a show of fixing it. She'd give me these soft glances, not pitying, but almost apologetic, like she didn't quite know how to stop the train wreck she saw happening, but she hated being a part of it. Emily didn't care. Or worse, she enjoyed it. Every insult from her family bounced off her, like she was immune to how they treated me. Sometimes she even smiled when they hit too hard. I kept thinking, this is who they really are, and maybe this is who she really is, too. But I wasn't ready to admit it. Not yet. It was a Tuesday night. Emily had fallen asleep early on the couch after another long call with her mother about centerpiece designs and lighting. Packages things I hadn't even agreed to yet. I was clearing tabs on her laptop to grab a recipe when I accidentally clicked her. Browser history. That's when I saw it. A dozen bridal gown sites, all with price filters set between $8,000 and $15,000, custom silk, hand-stitched lace. One tab was still opener dress she'd already scheduled a private fitting for. It cost more than my car. And then I saw the email, confirmation for a venue I'd never heard of, a premium waterfront estate experience. It read, "Nan, refundable $1,000,000 deposit, charged to a credit card I didn't recognize." My heart sank. I scrolled through the thread, begging to find a message asking me about it first. There was none, just her and her mom. coordinating dates and vendors like I was some invisible wallet that happened to wear pants the next morning. I waited until she finished her smoothie and casually asked, "Hey, did you book a venue already?" She didn't even blink. "Yeah, the one Mom and I liked. It's gorgeous." "You didn't think to ask me first?" She gave me this look, this exhausted, dismissive sigh. "I didn't think I needed to run every little thing by you. You either keep up or step aside, babe." I sat there stunned. That was it. That was the moment. She didn't want a partner. She wanted a sponsor. Someone to fund the fairy tale, not co-write it. I said nothing. Just nodded and picked up my keys. I wasn't sure where I was going yet, but for the first time, I was starting to imagine a future without her in it. That night's dinner felt more like a courtroom than a family gathering. Emily and her mom were in rare form, talking about crystal stemware and imported orchids like we were royalty. Her brother made yet another joke about my salary, this time comparing it to the DJ's rate for the wedding. Everyone laughed, except Grace. She sat there quietly, pushing food around her plate, eyes flicking toward me every so often. I was barely chewing, just nodding when spoken to, trying to keep from snapping. I don't know what showed more my discomfort or my defeat after dinner. I helped carry some dishes into the kitchen, just to get away for a moment. As I turned to leave, Grace followed behind me, drying her hands on a dish towel. She hesitated, then gently touched my arm. "You okay?" she asked, her voice low. I tried to force a smile, just tired. She looked at me for a long second before speaking. "You know," she said quietly, "you deserve someone who doesn't laugh at your love." I blinked, caught completely off guard. "What do you mean?" She shrugged, eyes darting toward the other room. "I saw your face that night. When you gave her the ring, you looked like you meant it, like you actually felt something. Emily doesn't. She doesn't see things like that. But I did. I always have." Her voice wasn't flirty or seductive. It wasn't a move. It was honest, gentle, real. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, and she gave me the softest smile I'd seen in weeks before, heading back to the dining room. Her words echoed in my head for days. "You deserve someone who doesn't laugh at your love." And for the first time, I believed maybe I actually did. I rehearsed the conversation 100 times in my head, every version of it. Calm, angry, tearful. But when the moment came, I felt strangely still. I sat Emily down in her parents' sunroom, the same place we'd once talked about honeymoon destinations and baby names, and I told her the truth. "I can't marry someone who disrespects me so deeply," I said, my voice even. "Not just you, your whole family, but especially you, because you let it happen." For a split second, she looked stunned, and then she laughed. Not nervously, "Are you serious? You're breaking up with me." "I'm not breaking up," I said. "I'm stepping out. There's a difference." That's when her mother stormed in like she'd been waiting behind the door. "You ungrateful little coward," she spat. "You should be honored. Someone like Emily would even look at you. You were never going to be enough." Her brother chimed in from the hallway with a loud snort. "What happened at the pawn shop? Run out of engagement rings. What's next? You gonna propose to a girl with a candy wrapper?" I didn't flinch. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just picked up my keys and walked out the front door. Emily didn't follow. Her mother didn't stop. Her brother laughed all the way to the driveway. As I sat in my apartment with nothing but silence and a whiskey glass sweating in my hand, my phone buzzed. It was Grace. Just 2 words, "I'm sorry." And somehow, in that quiet little message, I felt more seen than I ever had in 3 years with her sister. I stared at it for a long time before replying, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I finally felt like I mattered. It didn't take long, less than 48 hours after I walked out. Emily went public. A long, dramatic Facebook post filled with vague language and carefully curated victimhood. She wrote about how she'd been blindsided by betrayal and how I abandoned her with no explanation after 3 years of devotion. She ended it with a picture of the ring box I had returned. Some people just aren't man enough for marriage. The comments section turned into a sympathy parade. Her friends chimed in with, "Men are trash, and you deserved better, babe." One even said, "Ugh, he always looked like he was punching above his weight." People I barely knew started messaging me. Some were neutral. Others weren't. My own mother called, voice tight with concern. "What's going on? Why is Emily saying, you just disappeared?" I wanted to defend myself. to post receipts, screenshots, the full truth. But I didn't. I took a deep breath and told my mom the basics that things weren't what they seemed. And I wasn't going to justify myself to people who never cared to hear my side. I sent Emily one text in response to her online performance. "I know what I'm worth." That's enough. No reply. Later that night, as I sat on the edge of my bed, my phone buzzed again. It was Grace. "Proud of you." Just that. No emojis, no fluff. Just quiet, steady support. And somehow, it hit harder than any insult they'd thrown, because for once, someone in that house wasn't trying to shame me, manipulate me, or turn me into a villain. Someone was finally rooting for me to walk away and mean it. And this time, I really did. It started with short messages, little check-ins. Grace would ask how I was doing, or send a funny meme just to break the tension of everything that had happened. I appreciated it more than I admitted at first. Her texts felt like little anchors in the storm quiet, reminders that not everyone in that family thought I was worthless. Over time, those quick chats turned into longer ones. Voice notes, late-night calls. We'd stay up for hours just talking. Not about the drama, at least. Not always. We talked about growing up, about how people mistake silence for weakness. She told me how she always felt like the invisible daughter, that her role was to nod, smile, and keep the peace, while Emily stole the spotlight. "I used to think if I stayed quiet enough, they'd finally hear me," she said once. "But it turns out, they only listen when you scream like Emily." I told her how I spent 3 years believing I was building a future, that every loan, every favor, every sacrifice was part of something bigger. But in the end, it felt like I was just decorating someone else's castle. No lines crossed, just this mutual understanding. A strange comfort in being seen without having to perform. For the first time in months, I could breathe around someone. I could laugh. I didn't feel like I was under constant evaluation. One night, after a particularly long call, she said quietly, "You know, you're nothing like they make you out to be. Neither are you," I wanted to say. But instead, I just smiled in the dark, phone still warm in my hand. I didn't know where this connection was going, but for the first time, it didn't feel like a mistake. It had been a few peaceful weeks, quiet healing weeks. I was finally starting to feel like myself again. I threw myself into work, picked up a few new responsibilities, even got nods from management about a possible promotion. Things were steady, calm, and then she showed up. Emily. She came charging into my office. Lobby like a storm in stilettos. Eyes wild, hair frizzed from either rage or wind or both. I was grabbing a coffee from the break room when one of the receptionists buzzed me. Your ex-fiancée is here, and she's yelling." I walked out just in time to hear her shout, "So it's true, huh? You're sleeping with my sister now. Is that your idea of revenge?" Everyone stopped what they were doing. Phones lowered. Conversations halted. The room froze. My chest sank. Not from guilt, but from secondhand shame. I wasn't sleeping with Grace. We had become close, yes, but it was nothing like what Emily was accusing. And even if it had been, that wouldn't have excused this. I tried to calm her down, told her she was making a scene, but the louder I stayed quiet, the louder she got. Security had to be called. HR came down and politely but firmly escorted her outside while she shouted things like, "You'll regret humiliating me, and she's always been jealous of me." The worst part wasn't the embarrassment. It wasn't even the way my coworkers looked at me like I was part of some tabloid headline. It was the moment I realized, without a doubt, that Emily had never loved me. She had loved the idea of being chosen, of being elevated, of having control. And now that control was gone, and so was she. A few days after Emily's meltdown at my office, Grace and I met up at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. No one we knew went there, and the booths were tucked deep, safe, private. She looked tired, like the whole family circus had worn her thin. But there was something else in her eyes to resolve. She stirred her tea for a long time before she spoke. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, not meeting my gaze. "About Emily and my mom." My stomach tightened. They talk about men like they're walking bank accounts," she said softly. "My mom always called them ATMs with egos." Emily picked it up too. It was like some game they played who could squeeze the most out of a guy without giving too much back. I didn't say anything. I just stared at her. She kept going. "Last year, Emily made a bet with one of her friends. said she could get a man to spend $50,000 on her before marriage. Not just gifts, rent, vacations, upgrades. She thought it'd be easy. And when she started dating you, I think that was the plan. I felt sick, like something toxic had settled in my gut. All the little things, those emergencies, the rent, the trips, the dress it, all clicked into place like a cruel puzzle. I finally managed to speak. "Why are you telling me this now?" Grace looked me dead in the eye. No hesitation in her voice. "Because I see you," she said. "The real you. And I don't want you thinking we're all like them." And in that moment, I believed her. Because unlike her sister, Grace never once made me feel small. A month passed, quietly. Grace and I kept talking, still no labels, no pressure. Just two people unraveling the mess our lives had been tied up in. Then one morning, I walked into work, and my manager pulled me into his office. "I'm making you senior lead on the new systems integration," he said. "And there's a salary bumped 20%. I just sat there for a second, stunned. Not because I didn't think I was capable, because, for the first time in a long time, someone saw it, validated it, and I didn't have to beg, prove, or bleed for it. I went home that night and opened the same laptop Emily had once used to shop for wedding dresses we couldn't afford. But this time, I wasn't looking for her. I was looking for me. I bought a ring, not just any ring, $40,000 custom-cut sapphire and diamond piece, engraved inside with the words, "I choose me." It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about Emily. It was about healing. But as the days passed, and Grace and I kept growing closer, diners, long walks, bookshop, dates, I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, it could be about something more. One night, we sat on my balcony, sipping wine and watching the city lights flicker below. The conversation turned quiet, then vulnerable, and that's when I asked her something bold, something that had been sitting in my chest for weeks. "Grace, what if we didn't keep dancing around this?" She looked at me, her eyes steady. "You mean US?" she asked. I nodded. "I know it's fast. But what if it's just right?" She didn't answer right away, but she didn't run either. And in that pause, in that breath, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. I didn't want fireworks. No staged photos. No champagne hidden behind a tree or someone waiting to record it. I wanted something honest, something real, so I asked Grace to meet me at our favorite park, the one with the old oak trees and the quiet little bench tucked near the duck pond, where the world always seemed a little softer. It was the same place she once told me she liked sunsets more than sunrises because they don't ask you to start anything, they just let you exhale. I brought the ring with me, tucked in my coat pocket, no fanfare, no velvet box. She arrived in a long sweater and jeans, her hair pulled back in that effortless way she always wore it. We sat and talked for a while, nothing serious, just the usual wandering conversation we always had. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out the ring, and held it out between us. "I don't need a big moment," I said. "I don't need perfect timing. I just need to ask Conley if you want forever. No pressure." She didn't look at the ring right away. She looked at Murali, looked at me, and then her eyes filled with tears. "Why are you crying?" I asked, already knowing, because she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never thought someone would see me like this. Not compared to her, not ever." I slid the ring into her hand, and she nodded. No theatrics, no gasp, just a quiet, trembling yes. We sat there in silence for a long time. No cameras, no audience, just us, the ducks, and the sky turning gold. And in that moment, I realized this was what love was supposed to feel like. It took less than a week for the news to reach her. A cousin on her dad's side, someone we hadn't even told directly, lived up at a family dinner. Mentioned seeing me and Grace holding hands at the farmer's market, like it was casual gossip. But with Emily, nothing was ever casual. She went nuclear the next morning. My phone lit up like a fire alarm. Texts, tags, screenshots. Emily had posted a carousel of old photos, me and her, from our happier days, followed by a rant about betrayal, stolen love, and how her own flesh and blood had stabbed her in the back. Then came the private messages. She screenshotted texts I'd sent her cropped and rearranged to make it look like I had cheated. And worse, she started spreading lies about Grace, saying she had always been jealous, that she seduced me after the breakup, that it had been going on behind everyone's back. It was desperate, ugly, and loud. But this time, something changed. The sympathy train didn't come. Her usual crowd offered some vague comments and then went silent. People had seen her manipulate stories before, but now with Grace involved, backfired. Grace had always been the quiet one, the overlooked one. People knew she wasn't the type to scheme. And then, out of nowhere, her father spoke up. He commented on the post publicly. "I don't know the full story," he wrote, "but I do know Grace, and I believe her." That one comment cracked Emily's whole narrative. Her voice lost its grip. Her claws dulled. She tried to backpedal, but the damage was done to her story, and maybe to the image she'd spent years curating. And as for me and Grace, we just stayed quiet, because sometimes silence says everything. We got married on a cloudy Tuesday in the park where I proposed. No venue, no banquet hall, no fake smiles from people who didn't care. Just a quiet ceremony under the old oak tree with a handful of close friends. And the sound of wind in the leaves, like nature, was whispering its blessing. Grace wore a $200 dress she found online. Simple, flowing, barefoot in the grass. I wore a $90 suit I already had in the back of my closet. It didn't matter, that $40,000 ring. It wasn't about price anymore. It wasn't about proving anything to anyone. Not Emily, not her mother, not her echo chamber of shoulds. It was about peace, about value, about choosing someone who chose me without needing to be impressed first. We didn't have a honeymoon in the Maldives, or designer flatware, or a 4-tiered cake with edible gold. We had takeout tacos under the stars and laughter that didn't feel forced. And for the first time in years, I felt free. People ask if it was awkward, marrying into the same family. But by then, Grace had moved out, distanced herself from the toxicity. And honestly, the ones who mattered showed up with love in their eyes, not whispers behind their hands. I didn't seek revenge. I didn't plan this story like some long game of payback. I just stopped settling. I started listening to that voice in my gut that said, "You deserve more than survival disguised as love." And if you're reading this, sitting in the dark, wondering if it's worth walking away from someone who chips, that you're worth a little more every day, this is your sign. Walk, because sometimes the person who truly sees you is standing just outside the blast radius, waiting to help you rebuild.